Hey everyone, your designers are here.
I'm Anita at Cedar Hill
And
Farmhouse.
I'm Yvonne at Stone Gable.
And I'm Kelly at My Soulful Home.
We have tips, tricks, and decorating advice for you today, so let's get started.
This is episode 223, Creating a Timeless Living Room. And the show notes for today's episode can be found at decoratingtipsandtricks.com/223. And we do love classics and creating a timeless look. We love our trends. But, what I like even more than a trend is having a classic look that I don't have to replace every 2 years.
Until you get tired of it.
Right. But I want it to be on my terms and not on the trend terms.
Oh, I like that.
Absolutely.
Write that down, ladies.
Decor on my terms.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So anybody got any tips right off the bat? I mean, what do you do, Kelly?
Yeah. Me?
Yeah.
I like to go with not one look, air quote look. I like to include a few styles. So today we're focusing on the living room. So I would perhaps shake it up with a more modern side table, end table, or if my look was more modern, maybe I would shake it up with a more vintagey, antique looking side table. So I would have my predominant look, my predominant style, and then I would like to incorporate two other styles. So this way, it does create obviously a timeless look because you're spanning actual periods of time, over the course of, it could be hundreds of years, depending on what you're choosing to put in there. But nobody's going to walk in and be like, oh, mid-century. Oh, colonial. Well, I would hope nobody would do that. No colonial.
Autumnal.
Exactly. Oh, French or, French provincial or whatever. You're going to have a certain style it's your predominant one that you're drawn to. That is your overarching look, but that incorporates some other pieces from other decades, other centuries, even to have this cohesive feel.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. I would say go back to some older design books that are at least 20 years old, but maybe even older. Maybe it's even a room designed 100 years ago. But I would go back and look and see what was in style then that's still in style now. And that's a classic.
Ah, good. Yeah. If you're not sure, good one.
Yeah. So I would kind of look too at things that, I definitely would look at these older books and look at some of these manor houses from England, some of these old chateaus in France, and just kind of look at some of these things that there's so much classic design there. Now, I will say that traditional English look of being overstuffed is something that's for today's sensibilities, may feel like too much. But, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Go look at it and see what you can pull out. So the point from a lot of this is to incorporate. If you don't like antiques and vintage, then just ignore this advice. But if you do, those things are going to give your room this timeless elegance, this feeling like it's been around forever and you didn't just create it yesterday. And it does give it a very classic look.
Now, when I think of a timeless living room, I don't think of 100 years ago, Anita, but that's a wonderful way to think of that.
Well, but I mentioned even like 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think of things that are tried and true, things that you look at and go, gosh, that would have worked 5 years ago. And 5 years from now, it'll probably work too. Or gosh, that would have worked 10 years ago. What we're talking about, I want you to not necessarily look at the fabric, but I want you to look at the lines of a piece. And I think the lines will really give away whether it's a classic piece or not. If it's something that looks like it can stand the test of time, like you've seen that before, but maybe in a, different fabric, or if it's a little more overstuffed or understuffed, you're probably looking at something that's a classic. And that's how I like to decorate. I call it sort of the foundation of my home. Is decorated in classic furnishings, like my sofas, my beds, most of my chairs, some not. My dining room table, although it's updated materials, are all very classic because those are my big ticket items. And I use those as a foundation or a jumping off point for the rest of my decor in my home. And that I can make a little more creative or a couple different styles or putting more trendy things into it. But I always have that base that is very classic, and that will give you a timeless look.
Right. So the furniture, you want to get classic lines on your furniture.
Mm-hmm.
And another way to give a room classic look is to look to fabrics that are simple. The more simple the fabric, the more classic it's going to be, because the more busy, the more detailed they are, then it tends to be a look that's going to come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Those really heavily printed fabrics, the very detailed prints, they're going to go in and out of style. But if it's a classic look like a buffalo check, that's really in style for the long haul. Or a solid, a neutral, maybe a nice stripe. I mean, that's always in style. So those are the fabrics that I would use for my big pieces in a room. Would be either solids, neutrals. If you want to use a pattern, I would go with a very simple pattern like a stripe, or, like we said, maybe a buffalo check. And then if you want to add that interest, I would do it with the pillows that are easily changed out, so that, you keep that classic look for all your key pieces that you want to keep in the room long term.
And we're talking about a living room. So I would say the biggest piece of furniture in most people's living room is your sofa. So you really want to keep that very classic if you want a timeless living room. Also, I would say most of your chairs keep that way too. I know that I have this really wild chair in my living room that wasn't very expensive, was meant for a guest bedroom, but I just thought it really kept my living room from looking staid, looking a little boring or a little old. I think you have to be very careful when you're looking at timeless pieces that you put them into let's talk about your living room, into a living room, and you've got to add some other very interesting things around it. So it is a very interesting room, because I think timeless, just done nothing but timeless, can look a little bit boring.
Well, I think that dovetails with what I was saying about don't just stick with the one look. Well, the overall look is timeless. What creates the sense of timelessness is that it isn't saddled with one era, not one look. So I think, we're sort of the same thing, adding that chair, which is a little different than the other things that you have in there. It makes it more interesting, and you're not really sure, when was this put together? This room could have been put together yesterday. It could have been put together 5 years ago. It could be put together 5 years in the future, and it's still going to look great.
I think when I'm talking about living rooms, also my living room, I think a timeless look would be to use a beautiful, silk oriental rug. However, I think that's a really good place to update it, and honestly, sisal rugs have been around forever, and they are a timeless and a classic, but done in a fresh way. And so instead of putting a more traditional rug, think about using a sisal rug and layering it. We talk about that all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that defines my living room is I have a zebra print rug in there that it almost is that little bit of tension. You know what I'm saying? It's a surprise. And some people love it and some people really hate it. And I hear both. But, for me, it works. And I think that keeps the other pieces looking fresh that maybe aren't as trendy.
Yvonne. I mean, if you're going with a very classic look, it can be a little boring or staid. So you want to throw in something that's a surprise element, something a little exciting. And I like to do that with unique antiques often. So it doesn't even have to be something new, but just something unexpected, something done in a little different way, some unique way to add color, just something that you weren't expecting. Maybe something like we talk about sometimes, add something that adds a little tension. Maybe it's an orange in with your pink. So you're like, oh, okay.
I love that look.
Yeah, I do too. So just something, you have to go off road a little bit to add some excitement to your room. But I think what we also need to point out is we're talking about what classic is, but what is it not? And what I would say is if you can look at a room and tell what year it was designed, it's not classic.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So too much trend.
If it's too trendy, then you'll be able to look at it and go, oh, that was 2015. It's got shiplap, or whatever. I mean, that's something to really keep in mind.
Boy, you've got that right, Anita.
Only that. I mean, you can have certain things in a room and it's not going to date it, but you got to mix it up like we're saying. And I would say another thing to do is add at least one antique. Now, antique means different things to different people. I know that for sure. When I go to the Rose Bowl, like I'm looking at really, really, really old things. And there are things that are antique there that are really only 10, 15 years old, and obviously all the mid-century stuff. So, everybody's antique might be, have a different interpretation.
My standard is 100 years.
Right. So we have a similar standard, but there are different standards for, what is an antique. So something that has a bit of history is how I would generally define an antique.
Now, to me, that's vintage. If it's 20 years or older, it's vintage, but it's not an antique unless it's 100 years old. And I see antique things from 1950 online for sale all the time. And I'm thinking,
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, I see what you're saying as the definition of it, but in general, whether you want to call it vintage or antique, have something that has a bit of history to it and has really great lines. And if you include that, in no matter what kind of style you have, again, that lends this timeless feel where you're not really sure, but somehow, it needs to go together and somehow it's working together.
Mm-hmm. I think a timeless room can also have a bit of a formality to it. So these are things that we're trying, for me, because when I decorate, I can decorate pretty formal. So, and I don't sort of like that look, but that's just sort of naturally the direction I go in. I do like something that looks casual and looks very comfortable, and nobody wants to live in a museum. Something that's so formal and so stiff that you really want to bring some comfort elements to create a timeless living room, especially if it's a room that you don't use that often. I mean, I know I have a formal living room, formal dining room. That's what they're called, but yet I don't want it to be formal. I want it to be welcoming and lived in. And I think you can have a timeless look that looks very comfortable. And I think that's what you need to strive for when you're thinking about creating timeless looks, comfort, because if you don't, you're going to get too formal and it's going to look uncomfortable.
Don't you just love a great recommendation from a friend? Well, we're delighted to be recommending these companies and their wonderful products to you today. And let them know your friends at DTT sent you. Go ahead, clean out your closet, then head straight to Quince. I love every item Quince offers, from wardrobe to decor, and I can really recommend their Ultra Stretch Super Wide Leg Pant at $49.90. The price is unbeatable, and the look is so flattering. It keeps you in on top and flares out of the bottom. Everything feels right with Quince. The price, the quality, and the sustainability. Quince offers a range of luxury wardrobe and home goods at prices within reach. And like Quince's clothing, their home goods are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, along with premium fabrics and finishes. Once you've cleaned out your closet and refreshed with Quince, you can also add something to your home decor. So give your wardrobe and your home the refresh it needs with Quince. Go to quince.com/DTT to get free shipping and 365-day returns on your next order. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/DTT for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DTT. And let me know how you love those pants. Pesto pork chops over Parmesan polenta. Not that easy to say, but oh so easy to make with Green Chef. Green Chef is the #1 meal kit company for eating well, and we have such a great deal for you. You're going to save $250. Listen on for the details on that. Green Chef makes eating well easy for any lifestyle, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat more balanced meals. We're getting into the busy holiday season, so it's a perfect time to have Green Chef help you out. Let Green Chef take the work out of eating clean this holiday season with their chef-crafted, nutritionist-approved recipes featuring fresh ingredients and nothing artificial. And you know what? You don't have to lose track of your healthy eating habits during the holidays. Every Green Chef customer gets a free session with their registered dietitians who will walk you through how to make clean eating work for you. So sign up for your free session and start on the road towards better health today. And that deal I want to tell you about, visit greenchef.com/DTT250 and use the code DTT250 for $250 off your order. So that's greenchef.com/DTT250 and use the code DTT250 for $250 off your order.
Formal doesn't have to mean uncomfortable, because I have a lot of beautiful French chairs that are very formal.
Yes, but you create a comfortable look with them.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is, if you have something formal, you can mix it up so that it doesn't feel too stiff. One of the things I do is put very informal, casual fabrics on very formal pieces of furniture. So, for example, a feed sack fabric on a French Louis XV chair, and then suddenly it's got a completely fresh look, and it feels much more welcoming and inviting. So there's a lot of things you can do, and if you're adding in the old with the new, the rusty with the refined with the rustic, then it's going to make the room feel very approachable. And I think the formal works if you mix it with some things that are very informal.
Well, and I'll just give you an example in my living room. I think it has a timeless look. It has very classic lines. It has some really elements of surprise, just the tattiest bit of farmhouse, because we live in an inspired farmhouse in farmlands. But there is something that bugs me every time I go in that room. And I know I really should change them out. I made drapes for that room, a decade ago. And they're beautiful, and the fabric was really expensive, and I lined them, and we have very tall ceilings, so they're very extra long. They were, of course I've done them, so they were custom made, but they're the perfect color for that room. But the pattern on them, it's almost a tone on tone, is a little too formal for that, and I know it, for that room. But it's just going like, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet and take these down, even though it just was such a hellacious project. And, but I think that would really help. So you have to look at your room and just really with a critical eye say, what in here maybe isn't working?
Mm-hmm. Well, and what do? Take a picture, and then
yes.
I think you'll really have a good feel for what's not working if you take that picture.
I so agree with you. I couldn't agree more. I think when you're looking at a timeless look, you're looking at something that really is probably a little more upscale looking, very curated looking. I think a tight color palette is really important for a timeless living room.
As well as genuine material. So,
yes.
She's sort of bemoaning the pattern of the draperies. It sounds like the look and the style and the quality of them, certainly timeless, beautifully lined and expensive, or maybe not even so expensive, but just well-made fabric, especially if you're going to make them yourself. But, spend the extra on the genuine in a room that you wish to have a timeless look. Get the real linen, get the Belgian linen, get the heavy duty fabric. Don't get something printed on it. Do something where it's in the weave. Even if it's just a little bit of it, if it's in a pillow or it's on the seat of a small chair, that's going to go a long way.
But
there's a timeless look.
There's also wonderful materials out there. I'm thinking about like a sofa there's companies that make wonderfully durable, hardworking, performing fabrics that, they're stain resistant, but that look lovely. Like I've got a sofa. I won't tell you the company it's from, but I have a sofa in my living room I absolutely love, and it looks like linen, but it is not. But it is very, very durable. But it doesn't look like what is it called? Orlon or whatever those like a synthetic fabric.
Herculon.
Yeah. Well, we know about your Herculon sofa.
Yeah. Yeah.
But look for things that look like if they're not natural, at least they look like they are. And the same with I have these two spindle chairs, and they're covered with this white, very heavy fabric that has it's like a tone on tone. Well, it's really a nub on nub. It's a herringbone nub to it. Mm-hmm. And you would think somebody spilled ketchup on it one time.
Oh,
it came right up.
Beautiful.
Totally came right up. Now, I paid an arm and a leg for those, but I knew that they were going to be in there for a very long time. And they've held up, and they're down. They're just lovely, lovely chairs. And I see them all the time on some of my very favorite sites, like for a quarter of the price of what I paid for it. But then I think, I just wish I hope it holds up as well as these have.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing you can add to your room that gives it that classic look is to check the symmetry of the room. Does it feel balanced? Because that is a classic look. Symmetry,
you're right,
is classic.
Well, it's a timeless look.
Mm-hmm. It's timeless.
If it's too asymmetrical, I like a little bit of asymmetry within symmetry. Do you know what I'm saying? Just something that might not quite be symmetrical, but it does lend towards a timeless look. You're right. Symmetry definitely lends towards that look.
Love it. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's, so foundational. I didn't have that on my list. Very good, Anita. Yeah. Okay. Incorporate some books, whether they're decorating books or they're, novels, not paperbacks. I don't think that's timeless. Don't pull out, like Stephen King's and have them dog-eared and sticking on a shelf. You don't really need to see those, right? So put those, you read it and it's probably over, go donate it, pass it on. But if you have some beautiful decor books, maybe you have Anita's books laying around, you can pile those up, or lovely vintage books, or
Kelly's book, My Soulful Home, Here in Flowers.
Thank you, my darling.
And mine's French accents. If you were wondering.
If you're just wondering. I've seen this done, but I'm going to really not go too far out on a limb and say that the backwards books, not a classic look, not a timeless look. Kind of silly, but I get it because it's all sort of neutral and looks, beige and textury and nice. So I get why people do that, but I don't know. It's kind of like a little pet peeve of mine. I would not do that. So I don't think that's a timeless look. If you have a bookshelf, I think if you want your spines to match, I can totally respect that and understand that. So you might want to limit your spines to a color palette that you enjoy.
Cover them in burlap.
Or you could cover linen. Them, but putting them backwards does not evoke timeless for me. But a nice stack of decor books used as a riser on your coffee table, or books on a shelf where you're seeing the pretty spines. There's so many beautiful book collections now. I know, gosh, I could look it up and we could stick it in the show notes, but there's a few publishers that came out with like all the classics, like all the, the Jane Eyres and the Sense and Sensibilities, and even like, Sherlock Holmes and things like that, with all beautiful bindings and spines, and some great books to have on hand. And if you have kids, more than likely they're going to have to read one or more of those. So maybe you pick up a collection of those, maybe 8 books or something like that, and you could put them in stacks, or you could put them on a shelf. That can really add a lot. Books are nice to have in a room.
In a timeless living room, also, you don't want to crowd your space. You don't want it to get too crowded and too overdone. I think when you're talking about something that looks timeless, things have breathing space. They're not crowded on top, or they're layered, but you don't want 10 layers and something on top of something else, because I think that just is more of a cluttered look than a timeless look. However, I've been looking at a lot of videos by designers, and I am surprised the stuff that they pack into a room.
Yeah,
some of
well,
these designers. It looks so overdone. I mean, their own personal homes, because they work with it and they love so much, like I do. I just love too many design elements. But to create a timeless look, give everything a little bit of breathing space.
I so agree with you, Yvonne. And that really is a more modern, but still classic look. Is
I
to
agree.
have a little more breathing space than we had in the 80s and 90s. It was kind of, you can't put too much in a room, just keep piling on, piling on, piling on. And now it's more of a curated look. Now it's more clean lines. So you've got a collection, but don't have it all out there. So
I
think
so
that's
agree.
a good point. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, I feel like we need to really approach the neutral conversation about using neutrals, because you don't have to have neutrals in a room to have a classic look. So if you hate neutrals, then that's fine. You don't have to have them. But I want to pitch why neutrals are so good if you do want a classic look. And that is because sometimes you have colors in a room that, and some of us on this podcast did have the Tuscan look. All of us did. 2 of us admitted it. 1 did not.
One calls it something else.
Wow.
Yeah, but we had the reds and the golds.
With love.
It's not like I'm shaming you. It's a rose by a different name or a stinkweed by a different name.
I think
the same.
There's nothing wrong with red.
I think we're sort of shaming you, but that's okay.
Yeah, y'all are shaming me. But anyway, the point is though, because I had so much red in my house. Yvonne had a lot of red and gold, and so did I in my house. So that when the colors changed to more of a blue, our houses ended up looking dated. So
instantly.
Right.
Instantly.
You woke up one morning, you went to bed in Tuscany, and you woke up someplace
and then we
else.
woke up and we were still in Tuscany, but everyone else had moved on to Sweden. And we were like, wait, hold the bus, we're coming.
And they all went out on a slow train, and we never noticed.
No, they were on the bullet train, baby.
I know, and we just woke up and went, what happened? But had we gone with a neutral look, we would not have been left behind. Now, I think that
you could have scrambled quite quickly.
So now in Blogland, I think that it's kind of made me sad because everyone's gone neutral. And I don't think that has to be the look. And I think then people get sick of it if everyone is doing it. But if you want the most timeless look possible, I would definitely go neutral. Add your color with accents.
Can I tell you this funny little story? I'm sorry, Anita. Go ahead, finish.
No, go ahead.
One of my dear blogging friends that I met real early on in blogging is Pinky. And she's just from Designs by Pinky. She's just so delightful. She lives
she's a sweetheart.
About an hour from me. And I was transitioning my house very slowly from like a mishmash and changing styles. And let me tell you, changing your whole color of your whole house. First of all, it's a hugely long process. You should just see our master bedroom and the tiny blue wallpaper we still have on it because it's not been done. That's like our very last room. It's such a process. And I went over to her house. And first of all, her home is so unique. The way she has curated it, it's one of a kind. So if you have time, run over to Design by Pinky. She's just amazing. Such a wonderful friend. But anyway, she had this white sectional sofa in her living room. And that's the first time that white, I just was like, I have got to do this. It just stopped me in my tracks.
It was beautiful.
And she said to me, Yvonne, I've had this for like 28 years. I'm thinking,
and it looks so fresh and now.
It did. And that was, long ago. That was almost a decade ago. And it was so beautiful then. And I thought to myself, I've got to do my house in neutrals. That's when I decided that, I'm going to sell in. I'm just going to be sold. And even the lines of her sofa were so timeless. Now, I don't know how she kept that white sofa so beautifully white.
But you can use throws on, in really like big pieces of fabric. And when I say throw, I mean the width of maybe it's more of a bed scarf and kind of cover things up if you want and kind of change out color that way, or even protect the fabric. Or
but all of its gorgeous whiteness.
Use a slip cover. So many things you can do. But yeah, it really is so much easier to have a timeless look if you stick with the neutrals and then do the accent colors. Or just use a few colors, because that it is amazing to me how much Harvest Gold, Hunter Green. I mean, how many of these colors really you think of a particular period in time that they were popular?
Bathroom tile pink. You think, oh, that's never going to go out of style. Oh, yes. Color does probably goes out of style more than the lines of pieces, to be honest with you.
Right. And so it's not just patterns, but colors go in and out of style. So that's really something you can do to stay on top of it. And really, that's why we say if it's a big ticket item, you really, and you don't want to replace it in a few years, really think about going as neutral as possible and going as simple as possible. Because I used to always buy a very full color, very patterned sofa. And there was the purple sofa sandwiched in there somewhere. And I got it. And the thing was, it was a very bold pattern. I loved it to death when I got it. And then I wanted to beat it to death a few years later.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. What was that? I guess. Inevitably, with the new year come wellness goals. One very effective and easy to reach goal is to add Dose to your wellness regime. Dose is expertly formulated organic wellness shots that support your liver in one delicious drink. Formulated with ingredients clinically shown to support liver health. Potent turmeric, milk thistle, and ginger. There's 0 sugar and 0 calories. Did you know that your liver performs over 500 special functions? Since I learned all that my liver is doing, I started with Dose to support all those vital functions. I take a shot of refreshing Dose 2 times per week to combat everyday toxins from food, meds, alcohol, and unhealthy air. Since starting with Dose about a month ago, I am definitely feeling an overall improvement in my health. So if you want to give Dose a shot and invest in your health like I have, Dose is offering DTT listeners 15% off your first order, plus an additional 15% off if you subscribe for a monthly delivery. That's 30% off your first order. So go to dosedaily.co/DTT and use the code DTT. That's dosedaily.co.co/DTT and use the code DTT. Green Chef is a delicious delight any time of year, but especially during the holidays. What a wonderful vision to behold as the Green Chef boxes on your doorstep. Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating well. And it makes eating well so easy with plans to fit every lifestyle, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat a more balanced diet. So let Green Chef take the work out of eating clean this holiday season. And if you've got guests coming, shop Green Bundles. They're now available at the Green Market. It's your one-stop shop for nutritious grab-and-go breakfasts, including vegan options, brunch kits, wholesome lunches, ready-to-eat snacks, veggie sides, and more. You can feel your best this December and do your best with Green Chef because they offset 100% of the delivery emissions as well as 100% of the plastic in every box. Go to greenchef.com/60DTT and use the code 60DTT and get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. greenchef.com/60DTT and use the code 60DTT to get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months.
Mid-90s-ish, maybe late 90s, when the giant sofas that had then the different coordinating fabrics on them.
I loved those.
So did I.
There was a store in Southampton Village, and I would go and I would walk past it, and there was this gigantic sofa, and it had giant cabbage roses on like the cushions, and then the back had something else, and then the rolled arms was something else, and I just
and it had trim and cording,
and I thought it was the most spectacular thing that ever happened. And if I could only scrape together the money or carve the door, twice as big as it was to get it inside, like I would be the happiest girl in the whole world. I say, thank goodness. I actually saw one of those the other day in my favorite thrifty. And, you know, I mean, somebody had spent a lot of money. Those were expensive because I'm sure the labor on those were
the $7,000 sofa.
Yeah, it was like a $7,500 sofa. Crazy. And oh my gosh, phew, I didn't get that. I mean, of course I did get a giant red sectional, but we all know what happened with that. But, oh my gosh, you know, that was one of the things. And had I really understood about being timeless, then what had I known then what I know now? But only my wallet stopped me.
Yeah, I was just going to say that if you liked up-to-date decor, if you like decor that looks great, beautiful decor, go neutral, go classic, because you won't spend nearly as much money because it stays in style longer. Now, the little goofy chair that I have that has the like stylized flowers on it that I just love in my living room, that was less than $250. Actually, I think it was like way less than that. I want to say like it was $210 or something. Well, for heaven's sakes, if I have it for 4 years, I'm happy with that. That's like $50 a year. And I really could put a slipcover on it because it would be such an easy style to slipcover, but the materials really held up. It's just real fun. It adds a lot of interest. It takes that timelessness and makes it a little sassy and snappy.
My last tip is add something unexpected, a pop. Maybe my thought would be something from your travels, but add something from your personality. So that chair is your pop. And there you go. And it works. And it's okay. And you can take it out. And the whole room doesn't collapse because you changed that chair.
And I don't have to go, oh my gosh, I've got to keep this another 7 years because I spent so much money on it. That's about, remember, I've always said, don't spend more than the years you want to keep something.
Us today. We hope that you got lots of tips and ideas on creating a timeless living room. If you have photos of your own living room, whether you believe it to be timeless or not, feel free to send us some photos. We would love to see them. And certainly if you've taken us up on any of our tips today, take pictures of what you've done and let us see. And remember, we're here to inspire you to create a beautiful home. Until next time. Hey, everybody. We want to thank you so much for listening to Decorating Tips and Tricks. And we want to make it even easier for you to listen. And it's easier if you subscribe. You just click the subscribe button on our website, www.decoratingtipsandtricks.com, or you can subscribe through Apple Podcast or any of your favorite podcast listeners. When you subscribe, DTT comes free right to you 3 days a week. So until next time.